All right, maybe it's going to work better this time. Ah, yes, okay. Okay, at least now I see myself. Can people hear me? Okay. Cool, okay, great. All right, let me upload my slides. Yeah, okay. So just a note for other, a note for other speakers. Okay, so you can hear it. So note for other speakers, sometimes it seems on Linux going over a TCP connection instead of UDP, you may lose everything if you just click to a new session. You may have to reload the thing. Okay. So people can hear me, good. Great. So first, quick thing. So I work on Polkadot. For people who are interested in doing ZK stuff on Polkadot, I didn't make a slide for this, but maybe it's better in the room. So we have our general strategy for that is going to be just let you run ArcWork stuff natively on Polkadot. And we've been very dragging our feet on it, but we'll probably have things on a test net within a couple months or something. Anyway, there's the public room for discussing that on Matrix is that, if people are interested. Okay, so I'm going to go and talk about, okay, so what I'm going to tell you about is how to build these things called ring VRFs from something called a zero knowledge continuation. This is, if people were at the ZK Summit, this is basically the same talk, but I'll change things here and there based on the context here. Okay, so now I have to figure out how to change slides. There we go. Okay, so it's that. Okay, so first of all, quick background. So a ring signature is a signature that proves that we have a signer in some sort of publicly specified set, and which we call the ring. And basically, every time people want to do pretty much all the time when people want to talk about is doing ZK stuff on blockchains, they're talking about ring signatures, but they're also used outside that. All right. But so, and one of the things to keep in mind is that, so if you just, like the oldest ring signatures just listed the set in the signature, and that's of course not efficient. But you can have sort of fancy ways of talking about the set that shows up in the ring signature, and like Zcash, that's what Zcash does. So, all right. Anyway, ring signatures, it's just a signature of some sort with where you prove that you have some big commitment to a lot of public keys, and you prove that it's one of those. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what are called verifiable random functions. So these are another kind of signature, and what they do is they prove the evaluation of some pseudo-random function, which basically means something akin to a hash function, determined by the signing key used in the signature. So these are used all over the blockchain space now. They go back a very long ways. And generally speaking, so the simplest one the verifier looks like this. It's just if you erase this line with in and out in it, then it's a Schnorr signature. And just adding that in, it proves it's what's called a discrete log equality proof between the out modulo the in point and the PK modulo G, and the in point is something you hash to the curve. Okay, so it looks like it's basically a more efficient way of proving something that looks like a BLS signature. Okay, so that's ECVRF. Now, what are these ring VRFs? They're ring signatures that are also a VRF. So this just means that they prove evaluation of some pseudo-random function. These are determined by the actual key pair, but they anonymize which key pair is being used within some set. Okay. So the claim that I'm going to make is that these things are extremely useful. You can sort of squeeze a lot of different ZK kind of tools that you would want to build into this function, into this framework. And in fact, it becomes at this point simple enough that you don't using these things is simple enough that you don't necessarily need to be a ZK dev anymore. You can just kind of go and use the ring verifiable random function. Perhaps, depends on what you're doing. But for example, if you wanted to make certain kinds of games and whatever, you could probably once we finish ours, we'll be able to just use it off the shelf. Anyway, so this is so it's going to be a very useful construction, and so how do we build one of these things? So I'm going to tell the story in two parts. The first part looks almost exactly like the EC VRF. The difference is this little t times k added into the second line. And what that does is that makes it a discrete log equality proof between the secret key part of a Peterson commitment and this out. So what that means is that we've hidden the actual public key, but it doesn't do very much here because it's just a Peterson commitment to one public key, not to a set of them. Okay. Don't try and actually formally model this guy because it's, well, you could, if you're a real academic, go right ahead, try and formally model this guy. But there's a number of things that go kind of wrong when you try and model it as a VRF. But that's an interesting conversation to have with academics at some point. But we decided to skip it. We just model when we do our academic stuff on this. We'll just do the whole construction all at once. All right. So what's a ZK continuation? And that was in the title. So how do you have a really cheap prover? Well, the cheapest prover is to not prove anything, or at least to not prove anything again, to have proved it in the past and just reuse the proof. Now, that's not very ZK because the proof itself will link the two uses. So but nevertheless, the thing to realize is that nevertheless, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take an existing proof and we're going to make it unlinkable to the previous proof and sort of reuse it. Now, there's a proof system called Gross16, which probably most people here have heard of. And Gross16 has a very nice property that it has this re-randomization sort of built in already. Actually, everybody hated that for a while because it made it hard to prove theorems about it, but it turns out very useful for us. So this is what Gross16 looks like. So this X is in the regular Gross16 is some public input that's constructed from some elliptic curve points times the actual values that are public inputs to the Gross16. And the A, B, and C are curve points that are pieces of the proof, and then all the Greek letters are what we call toxic waste. So nobody actually knows what those are anymore. Now, okay. Oh no, Sony's messaging me. Make sure it's all working. Well, that didn't work. No, that's nothing. Okay, so just making sure I'm still being heard. Okay, so the idea is that for this ring VRF is that what we want to do is we want to plug this X into as this COM-PK in the Peterson VRF, and so that'll take the form of the secret key times some generator G, which and then a blinding factor times some K. Now that we could do in the Gross16, but it would be really annoying because this blinding factor would occur inside the Gross16, which then means we need a new Gross16 each time we use it. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to do something else. We're going to take this is the usual randomization. If you remove the K terms in this is the usual randomization procedure for Gross16. But what we do is we pick some generator independent from everything else, which is this K, and then we just we define this K delta thing in the trusted setup for the Gross16. And then now what happens is once the Gross16 is proven, somebody can come, actually anybody can come along, but somebody can come along and change, change the K and the K delta however they like. And what this does is this changes this B, this blinding factor in the X piece. All right. Now, so this is okay. So now, what's the point in this? So the idea is that we can have ourselves we can make this proof once, and then we can keep reusing it. again and again. Okay, so what do we achieve with this? So so if we imagine the Gross16 looks something like this, so we have some commitment to the ring, and the internal Gross16 looks like this, and then our external Gross16 will have this other X, so we notice there's an extra term that shows up here. Now we end up with something where the marginal, so we have to run this Gross16 at some point in the past that has some prover time, but the marginal cost for the same ring of making of producing a new proof is 8 G1 scalar multiplications and 2 G2 scalar multiplications. So this thing is fast, like not like everything else you're going to hear about today. This thing is, by comparison to everything else you're hearing about today, this thing is free. Now, so okay, what can we do with it? And there's some other stuff we can do about avoiding side channels if we want, because if the ring changes, we risk a bit of a side channel attack. But I think I'm not going to talk about that. Now, okay, so what is this good for? So it's not very useful actually for online money, because the Gross16, generally speaking, if you're doing online money, you have a UTXO and you want to prove the UTXO is yours. But once the UTXO is spent, then it's spent, and you'll never need that proof again. So you only use each zero knowledge proof once, and generally in some kind of blockchain money thing. But it is really useful for identity. And so what this means is that I can have a ring of people, which can be just a blockchain that keeps adding, blocks listing new people. And now what the people in this ring can do is they can prove, the ring doesn't necessarily update that quickly, but they can prove that that they exist, and they can evaluate this function, and evaluating this function associated to their secret key gives them an identity in a context. Okay, so how does that work? So the ring consists of people, and what would happen is your user agent would validate the TLS certificate of whoever it's talking to, and then what it would do is it would just send the VRF signature signing the site name. Done. That's your ID at that site. And there's a bunch of other applications you can do with this too. You can make lots of card games. You can do lots of. We're using it in a new block production strategy, and it's fast. Okay. Now, there's other things you can do with this. So as you start to play with changing this input to the VRF, then you can come up with other forms, other strategies. So for example, if we set the site, if it's like site plus the month, then what happens is you have an identity that changes each month, which probably you don't want that. But if you did site plus month and you proved multiple inputs, which you can do here, then you'll be able to have like an identity. You can construct things where like the person has an identity. If they get in trouble, if they do something stupid on the site, they go away, then they can come back next month and have a completely new identity. But otherwise, their identity can be long lasting within the site. And there's a variety of different things that you can construct. Okay. Now I'm probably out of time here. I'm not exactly sure how much was allocated, but I wanted to another thing you can do with this stuff. So I said it wasn't useful for money, but you can, if your money is ephemeral, if it doesn't actually live very long, like in particular if it's some kind of rations and a ration card thing, or if it's just because you have a game on a blockchain that wants to let people play for free, or if it's some kind of discount coupon in stores, then what we can do is we can just create that ephemeral money, and it simply is sort of the context. So I'll say this. Well, okay, let me say this. So first of all, we're going to need rationing systems. This isn't really a question because the world has a number of problems, as discussed on this slide. But we had a mustard shortage in France this summer. So what you can do is you put in, if you use the message for the ring VRF as being like the thing you're rationing plus the week and maybe the number of things you're allowed to buy of that, then you could then exactly like a ZK money system, like Zcash or something, you can treat these as ZK nullifiers, but you get to throw them away as soon as you're done with them, or like as soon as like in the next week or two. As opposed to Zcash, which essentially has to track its nullifiers for until they really upgrade the circuit. So ostensibly forever, but at least like 5 years or something. And anyways, and you can use this kind of thing for a variety of different purposes. But since most people in this chat are probably interested in blockchain things, the main thing that most of us would be interested in this for is having a free tier on blockchain-based projects. So essentially, you can come in, you can use the system, you still have a key, and you don't have to buy any of the token or whatever, but that level of use is basically limited. All right. Yeah, I think yeah, let's see. So how much longer do I actually have? Well, all right. I'll say a word about what we're doing in Sassafras. Or what we're doing in, oh yeah, one other thing. For the case of the rationing system, it's actually extremely useful because this ring, this blockchain that contains a bunch of, that contains all of these public keys, can prove that it can actually be audited, which is something that's not true of most of the anonymous credential literature, which generally uses some kind of signature scheme. So this is a detail. This is a nuanced detail probably, but it's quite important. All right, one quick last thing. So we have a new block. This beautiful tree is a Sassafras tree. We have a new block production scheme for Polkadot that's coming out called Sassafras. The basic idea is it sort of is block production by Cards Against Humanity. Generally VRF protocols look a little bit like card games. And what's nice about one of the things that you can do with a ring VRF is you can play the cards face down and then shuffle them on the table with some anonymity system. And this is an SSLE, which you may have heard, like Ethereum is wanting to build a shuffle-based SSLE. This one is far, far more efficient because it doesn't, you don't have to shuffle things every block. You shuffle the whole epoch all at once, and the shuffling, we're trusting a network anonymity layer. There's a bunch of other details, but we have a paper on this, maybe on ePrint already, I think. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I think I'm over. If anybody has any questions, I'm not sure how that works here. So. So I think people will. No, I can't hear people. Okay, that's a problem. That's annoying. My speaker, everything seems to be fine here. Okay. Okay. So let's find, where's this Q&A? Is there no?
Hello.
Yeah, I heard this question. Okay, great. Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah. So again, in the interest of time, I think we'll have to forgo the questions for now, but definitely a lot of awesome questions here. If you just want to take some time to answer them in the chat room, Jeff.
Yeah, sure. That works fine.
What we'll do is we'll move on to the next session. Awesome. Thank you very much.